All right, everybody, we are back with another Ramp Careers Daily Update. Today, I'm here with Manoj, one of the co-founders of Ramps. Manoj, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Danny. Doing well. I like the flowers in the background.
Yeah, I'm switching rooms today. My home office is occupied. Some folks are building a closet in that room.
One of the joys of living in New York is there's not a lot of rooms for me to switch to. So this is it. Get used to the background.
There you go. It's been the same every day for quite some time. That's good. There's some sense of normalcy in this crazy world with your background. It's been the same almost throughout. Cool. So today we want to talk about an exciting topic. We want to share some strategies, some tips, and some tactics on how to find a mentor that's right for you. So let's jump in. Manoj, I know you had some thoughts pre-meeting on what it looks like, at least process-wise, to go about finding a mentor that we should be talking about. What are those steps?
Yeah, if you're stepping back, more importantly, sure, you've had the same experience yourself, but mentors have been so critical at every stage for me professionally, and sometimes even personally. There's things that I've shared with them, things that I've relied on them for that I think, friends and family may not have been the best people to help me in certain circumstances. And so I think that it's something that everyone should take advantage of and everyone should seek. I simply can't see any person that's so self-sufficient that they don't believe that they would benefit personally or professionally from someone that's been there, done that, they kind of look up to. So I would encourage anyone that's young, early career, or even transitioning professionals to look around and tap into the collective wisdom of others. Don't feel like, you got to walk the path by yourself. So with that said, the first step in going about finding a mentor is spending some time looking inwards, right? And asking yourself a couple of questions. Where do I stand in life today? And where do I want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? And so I think having an idea for what answers to those questions may be is helpful because it gives you context in terms of what type of a mentor should I find, right? Because people come in different shapes and sizes and different sets of experiences, and it's important to find that connection. And it doesn't really mean that your mentor needs to be in the same industry that you're trying to enter or must have done the same job that you're aspiring to reach over time. It has nothing to do with it. Yet you want to see that they have some experiences or some background that might be helpful for you and that you can learn from, right? And so I think you need to do a little bit of inner assessment to ask yourself those two questions. And after you've done it, figure out in a very defined manner what your goals are. These are my short-term goals and these are my long-term goals. And I think if you are armed with that information, it makes the process of finding that pool of people that you can trust a lot easier. Because otherwise, anyone in the whole entire world could theoretically be your mentor, right? And so you want to narrow it down a little bit. So that's kind of where I start. But Danny, you've been successful in, once you find answers to those questions, figure out how to go about finding somebody and how do you go make that ask, especially if, you don't know that person. How have you done it once you kind of know that the, X and Y are your goals?
Yeah, so good question. And I like a lot, if not all of what you've said just now about assessing where you're actually at. The first couple of things I would think about, one is who do you actually look up to? If you were thinking about your career in 5 years or in 10 years or 15 years or 20 years down the line, who are the folks that you would want to be or want to emulate? That's a good starting point because those people likely are folks that could possibly be good fits for mentors for you. And then two, after you've identified that list, it could be aspirational, it could be folks that are in your network, not in your network. I would take a look at, are those folks actually in your network? That would make it much easier to find a mentor. You have a personal or somewhat of a professional connection or even just a loose connection with that person. It's easier to engage with that person. If not, that's okay too. You can be aspirational and there are strategies to engage with those folks as well. The first step is, assessing where do you want to be, and then look for folks that match up with that in network or out of network. Now, once you have that list, then it's about doing the research, right? Your job is to do the research on that person. Make sure that you know if they're directionally correct, if they're actually a good fit. You have to do a little bit of background research, similar to a sales pitch. You have to know who they are, what they care about, have an assumption or have a hypothesis about what they would respond to. And then it's about developing your pitch, right? Your pitch for the ask. Be clear about your goals in the pitch. Ask them specifically what you're looking for, whether it's a short-term commitment, whether it's a bigger commitment, what you're willing to bring to the table. Be clear with your ask. Mention your research, right? What do you like about their work? What have you admired about their career trajectory? And then once you deliver the ask, make sure that you are starting with something informational, not something really robust and aggressive, like, will you be my mentor right away? Make sure you're asking for time, qualifying to make sure that they're available, and don't just jump in, similar to how you wouldn't just jump in asking for 30 minutes in somebody's calendar for a demo. Start with a light ask that they can easily say yes to. Something like, hey, would it be okay if we met for 5 minutes sometimes next week? And get them engaged with you before jumping into the serious ask, which is asking to be their mentor. So now that you have the process kind of laid out, Manoj, when you do start engaging with your mentor, talk to me a little bit about what are some of the steps you take to make sure that that person is qualified still and that you're putting on the best image of yourself so that you can lock in the mentor for you, the right mentor for you.
It's a trust-based relationship more so than anything else that's, even transactional, right? For two reasons. One is whether you realize it or not, it takes a bit of trust for yourself to open up over time and for yourself to share in your fears, your insecurities, and candid thoughts on what you're good at and what you're not, right? And the whole point of a mentor-mentee relationship is that the more you open up and the more they open up, the better of a working relationship it becomes for both of you, right? Otherwise, you'll just be out there talking about surface level things, and it doesn't really, help you in the long reach whatsoever. To sum up, it's a trust-based relationship, right? And so going in, you may not know, you might say, okay, here is 3 people that I think would be great for me to get to know, but you don't know who you're going to click with, and you don't know whether they'll click with you, right? It's a two-way street. My suggestion would be to spend some time with all of the folks that you want to get to know more and go into each interaction with them with a bit of thought, do your research, do your work, go in with being able to share where it is you think you will find their experience helpful. Be generous with sharing information about yourself, because that's really what gives them latitude to give back, and have a few interactions. And I think you'll develop a sense of whether this is something that you can see being beneficial for the both of you in the mid to long range. And you're not going to know until you have a few good interactions with them. And the burden of having those few good interactions is most definitely on you up until the point where you've earned their trust, and vice versa, especially in the beginning, because you're the one that's going into the ask. And if you're a blank slate, there's not a lot of structure to how they can come in and help. So it's okay for you to, be a blank slate, but within the context of having very specific questions and having, specific problems that you're trying to solve, right? And keep it narrow. You can go in and say, hey, listen, in the next year, this is what I'm trying to do, and here's where I'm struggling. And this is where I think I'm good at. I'm really not good at it. I'm struggling with this at work. I think going in with that kind of a mindset, narrow, but being a blank slate after you've shared things, but then be open and be like a sponge and absorb as much information. And if you do that 2, 3, 4, 5 times with folks, you'll get a pulse. You'll see whether these are folks that you want to continue engaging, and whether these folks actually end up liking you as well, because they're doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. And once you narrow it down and you feel like there are 2 people or 1 person that you're connected with really well, continue the same mentality. Every meeting you go in, be super respectful, right? And make sure that you do your research, treat it like any other sales call that you're going into, where you know what your ask is, you've done your research, you're open, you're honest, you're transparent. And I think that will inevitably lead to more quality conversations over time. And that's something that I've followed. One of the things that I find people do is just dance around the issue, right? I think you should be open to asking, what the hell it is that you want to learn from them. Just go and ask. Just say, I'm good at it. I suck at it. I have no idea why this is happening to me. It's okay. That's the whole point of a mentorship relationship. Now, I will warn you though, if there's this one account that you're trying to crack and there's this one introduction you want to go, you don't want to go to your buyer and ask them to be your mentor with an ulterior motive. I think that kind of sucks, right? So that's not the kind of ask I'm talking about. This really, which is why I said kind of go back and figure out what it is that you want in life. And honestly, if you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, all I want in life is this one meeting with this one prospect, I think we have bigger problems that we need to talk about. But don't mix those things up. That's not mentorship. That's just you trying to gain an edge and trying to game the system, and nothing good will come out of it. Trust me. But that's my broad suggestion, Danny. I think I'm talking in circles here, but really that's what it comes down to. I mean, what do you do after? Let's say you found a great mentor, you're having a great relationship with them. What is it that you do after?
These mentorship relationships do need nurturing over time. The first thing I'll say is make sure you're setting up a calendar to meet and meet regularly, whether it's every 2 weeks or once a month or once a quarter, whatever it is. Make sure that it's set up on the calendar and it's respected by both parties. Both parties are bought in. The next thing is in the meetings, you're the mentee in this situation. So make sure you're coming with the agenda for the meeting. That's on you. The third thing is be open to both critical and good feedback. Often easy to come in with your guard up, and some folks who don't have a natural disposition towards receiving feedback may actually come in to a mentor-mentee relationship not actually wanting to hear the hard things. And you mentioned it earlier in the conversation, but you must be open to this, especially if a mentor wants to give you that feedback. It allows for a more trusting and more open and honest relationship. And the last thing I'll mention is for these relationships to stick and to last, know that it is exactly that. It's a mentor-mentee relationship. They are not your therapist. They're not your parent. They're not your sibling. They may not be your friend. Just know the goal of the relationship is for them to guide you along the path that you ultimately wanted in the beginning, that you sought them out for in the first place, right? The career path that you're most interested in being a part of. Know that about the relationship, and don't treat it as just something where you can dump your problems, personal or otherwise, onto your mentor.
The last thing is I'm a big believer in karma. And I think that if you are a beneficiary of a great mentor, you should certainly find avenues to be helpful, most certainly to mentors, but above and beyond, if you have the opportunity to mentor someone else, you should. I think that is what creates a virtuous cycle, a flywheel of sorts. And that's the last piece of thought that I have on this one.
That's a great place to leave it. Let's leave it with karma. Manoj, it's a pleasure per usual. And for our audience, this has been another Ramped Careers Daily Update. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.